Are you thinking about opening your very own Etsy business this year so that you can make extra income, maybe to pay off some bills, or maybe it's something you want to work towards doing full time someday? Well, I want to help you do just that and give you 5 really easy steps so that you can hit the ground running and get your Etsy shop opened right now. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. LL here, your host, your guide, to help you with your Etsy business. Today I have a really good video for you if you're looking to start your Etsy business, or maybe you've started and stopped. This is something that will really help you move forward in the most easiest way as possible. I want to give you 5 easy to follow steps to opening your Etsy business right now so that you can set yourself up for success and have the best chance of making sales sooner than later. This process is very easy to follow, but it's very important to follow it in the specific order that I'm going to give you, because a lot of people do things out of order, and it really messes things up and really prevents them from achieving success early on. And unfortunately, the majority of Etsy sellers quit within the first year. They shut down their shops. They're not getting sales. They're not feeling that they're successful. So they decide to shut it down. And I don't want to do this anymore. Etsy doesn't work. It's not for me. And I don't want you to feel that way, because I know that if you do this right, you can find success on Etsy just like the literally hundreds of thousands of other sellers on there that make substantial sales each and every week and each and every month. And a lot of them do it full time, just like myself. And I want to help you do the same if that is your goal. All right, so let's dive in. Step 1 is your niche, finding the niche that you want to sell in on Etsy. There's 4. There's a lot of sub niches, and you can sub niche down, but I want to talk about the 4 main niches that people sell on within Etsy. That is the handmade market, where you're either creating the goods or designing the goods and selling them on Etsy. So you either have to create them and make them, or if you're not making them, you have to design them and have a manufacturer make them. Etsy did change that a few years back, where you can have manufacturers now, but you have to, at a minimum, design them in order for them to be handmade. Otherwise, you cannot sell stuff that you didn't either have a part in designing or making. Number 2 is going to be print on demand. This is kind of similar to what I was just talking about. You're designing the stuff and you have a manufacturer create it and ship it out, almost like drop shipping. So you're designing it, putting it out there on Etsy. A lot of print on demand companies link within Etsy. So as soon as the order comes through, they will ship it out for you and send that order to the customer. So a lot of people do print on demand for clothing, for art, apparel, accessories. There's a lot of different POD opportunities out there. The third one is going to be printables. A lot of people do sell printable, like checklists and guides and planners and all that stuff, where basically you buy it, you download it, you print it out. It's kind of a little bit more passive. Once you get the listing up, someone buys it, then they have to print it out, or take it somewhere, take it to a printing company and have them print it out for them more professionally, whatever they want to do. But you got to list it for sale. You got to do that work initially, and then you can resell it again and again and again and again, which is a lot of the allure of selling printables, right? Because you do that initial work and then it can continue to resell. Same thing with POD stuff. Once you do that initial work, it can continue to resell it, and you don't have to do any more additional work because you're not creating the products. And the 4th is vintage items. So these are items that are vintage, meaning that they're 20 years or older. So old video games, old clothing, but it's a little tricky because you have to know how old this stuff is. If it's not 20 years or older, you're not allowed to sell it on Etsy. So you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of putting stuff on Etsy that's violating their terms of service and getting shut down. You can't just sell random watches that you get a discount, or stuff that you get on Alibaba and listed on Etsy. It's not that type of marketplace. You have to follow the terms of service. It either has to be handmade or vintage, and then the sub handmade categories are, the printables, the POD stuff, where you're still designing those stuff. So you have to pick one of those niches. So that's very broad, and then within that niche, you have to kind of sub niche and see what are you going to sell. So if you're selling a handmade item, okay, what handmade item are you selling? Are you going to make jewelry? Are you going to make clothing? Are you going to make accessories? Are you going to make dog stuff? Are you going to make furniture? Sub down to get more specific with what you're going to sell. And I would suggest this is something that you should be passionate about and also have some knowledge about. At a minimum, you have to be passionate about it, because if you're doing this just to make a quick buck, chances are you're not going to stick with it. You're going to close down your shop because you're going to lose interest really fast. So it has to be something that you're super passionate about. The knowledge part can come later. It helps if you have a little bit of knowledge, but you can learn, teach yourself, and get better at as you go along. For instance, if you want to sell graphic tees, maybe you don't know how the design element, you're not as good at it yet, or you don't know Photoshop, you don't know Canva, the different design platforms out there, but that's something that you can learn and get better at over time and teach yourself and refine your skills if you're passionate about what you're doing. So think about it that way. Sub down, do some research. You can use the Etsy platform to figure out kind of what you want to sell, and niche down a little bit so you're not as broad. You can't just say, I want to sell handmade stuff. That's way too broad. There's millions of things that you can sell. So niche down, figure out what you want to sell specifically, and then even there, you can niche down a little further. So if you're going to sell jewelry, what kind of jewelry? Bracelets? What kind of bracelets? So niche down, ask yourself those questions so you get a general idea of your actual niche. Then comes step 2, which is going to be do product research. And this is something that most people do after the fact, after they already have their shop open, after they already did all that legwork to open their shop, start creating products even, then they decide to do product research. And this is a huge mistake. Reason being is the product research is going to determine if your niche is viable, if you're going to have a good chance of success. It will help you do that product research so okay, is the niche that you're going in, is there a big market for it? Are you going to be able to get a decent amount of sales in this niche? And is it a viable niche for the future? Can you build out this niche and build out a roadmap so you can get dozens of products in this niche, hundreds of products in this niche? So you need to make sure you're doing this product research. You can use the Etsy search bar and search to this niche, put in keywords in the search bar and look for best sellers and see what's selling. But I highly suggest you use and invest early in a platform such as Allura, which is a keyword search tool, which shows you, if you want to type in a specific set of keywords, it shows you how many searches that keyword's getting. More importantly, how many sales that keyword's getting. So if you do beaded gold necklace, you can see, okay, it's getting 2,000 sales. Okay, that's pretty viable. That's a pretty big market, and there's a lot of people wanting and buying that item. So that's a pretty good starting point. If you search for something else, maybe like I knew some people do like tarot cards, different things like that. Maybe there's only 10 sales. It's super niche down. Maybe that's not as viable. That's gonna be really, really hard to make any money if it's only getting 10 sales. If you want to look in the hundreds and thousands of sales, and you're gonna have multiple key, probably hundreds of keywords for a specific niche that could possibly bring in sales. So search for those keywords, see how many sales they're getting, see how many searches they're getting. You can look at competition. Competition is good too. If there's a lot of competition, that means there's a very big market for it. So you just have to get your piece of the pie. I'm not as worried as much about competition. Finding a niche that has low competition, high sales is very few and far between, and you're probably not going to find much, if any, out there. The majority of stuff that's doing well has a lot of competition because competition is following the market. So there is a chance that you could sell something that there's not a lot of competition for and you could do really well. just know that that's not going to be the most common thing to do. And that's not the easiest road to success. Uh, you can do it. It's possible, especially if you have a great idea, if you have a great product. But that is going to be very, very slim. So I would say don't count on that, but also don't let me deter you from doing that if you have a really good product and you feel really good about it. So product research will give you the information you need to make the decision to go forward. If you do the product research and your stuff's not viable, switch to something else, or switch your niche, or switch your sub niche and find something that is viable, that has a lot of traffic, that has a lot of sales. And then it's a lot easier to capitalize on that traffic and that sales and get your piece of the pie than try to create traffic and sales that doesn't exist. That becomes extremely, extremely hard. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're doing your product research early, and you should feel really good about your niche before moving to the next step. And the next step is naturally, not naturally, this is something that people miss too. People always miss these steps, and this is why I'm here giving you these steps. Step 3 is profit margin. Once you have your niche and your sub niche, what you're going to be selling, your product line of items, things that you're going to be selling. Maybe I'm going to do a line of wood pipe shelves. Or I'm going to do a line of necklaces. Or I'm going to do a line of whatever. You have your niche and your specific thing that you're going to build out and sell. What is your profit margin going to be when you're selling these items? And this is important whether you're doing handmade or print on demand or vintage. Your profit margin is going to change drastically depending on which category of Etsy you're going to be selling in. POD is going to be a much smaller profit margin because you're not doing any of the work. You're just designing it and putting it out there. They're creating it and shipping it. So your profit margin naturally is probably going to be around the 10 to 15% mark, if that. It's going to be lower if you decide to do marketing, coupons, and run sales. For vintage, depending on how you're sourcing your items, how cheap you're getting your stuff, your profit margin may be lower as well. Or it could be higher. If you're good at sourcing stuff, you're good at going out to thrift stores, yard sales, buying vintage stuff, your profit margin should be at least 50%. That's what it should be. So it may not be that to start because it's going to be a learning process, but it should be that high, if not higher with reselling vintage stuff. Handmade, I would say shoot for a 40 to 50% profit margin. If you're actually designing and making the items, you want to shoot for 40 to 50% profit margin. Reason being, and the reason why you want to have a higher profit margin, and even with POD, it's as much as possible, you want to try to get your profit margin up because you need to be able to leave meat on the bone for fees and sales and promotions, and basically changes in the market too. There may be changes in fees. Fees may increase, shipping may increase, product price or materials may increase, but you need to be able to do sales and marketing to promote your shop, promote your business, promote your products. Doing 10% off, 15% off, doing coupon codes to get people to come in and buy. So you need to leave meat on the bone. Otherwise, you're going to be losing money or making no money at all, which is not fun. And you're not going to be sustained. Your business isn't going to be sustained. You're going to end up quitting. And that's what I don't want for you. So do the legwork, figure out your profit margin. If you want, Alora, which is a great resource, has a Etsy fee calculator, which shows you profit margin. And you can even figure in advertising costs, but you can put in all your costs there. This is how much materials cost, how much shipping costs, how much packing stuff costs. If you're doing handmade stuff, you figure all that in, and then it'll automatically calculate the fees associated with your selling price, and it'll tell you your profit margin. So you kind of know. So if you do all this math and you come out with a 5% profit margin, not viable. I wouldn't even go any further. I'd go back to the drawing board because a 5% profit margin is very, very little wiggle room. And one easy mistake of buying something a material that's too expensive, or a shipping cost that increases, or a fee increase, then it'll go from 5% to a negative 3% profit margin. You'll be owing money when you're selling stuff. This is the biggest reason that shops get they shut themselves down because they realized that their profit margin was too tight. Things change. They're not making any money. Why the heck would you keep doing this if you're not making any money? We're not in this to. This is not a charity. We're not doing this for free. You got to be making money at the end of the day. So I would shoot to make yourself whole. Shoot for at least a 30% profit margin or above. Otherwise, if you're just starting, you don't have any of this stuff built out, I would go back to the drawing board and try to change things up. Whether you got to do a different niche, maybe you thought you would do POD, maybe you're going to do the stuff yourself. Try to figure that out. Now you can have a smaller profit margin if you're selling a lot. You can work on a tighter margin, but that's not really the case early on, and that's harder to do. So maybe you want to roll out with a niche or a category that has a higher profit margin. Then you can work in those smaller profit margin items later on once you're established, once you know what you're doing. But early on, start with a higher profit margin item and do the legwork. You got to figure out how much material costs. You can save costs by getting stuff wholesale. So do that legwork, do that research early on to set yourself up for success. So this step is really, really vital to success down the road. And it's something that people don't even think about or consider. And there's a lot of sellers, I'm not looking at you, but maybe you, that has their shop established and they don't even know their profit margin. And that, my friends, is a mistake as well, because if you don't know your profit margins, you don't know what sales you can run. You don't know how much meat on the bone you have to work with. So it's really, really important. Do the math. There's a link below. I'll share it. Allure has a free Etsy fee calculator that anyone can use, completely free. That'll give you your profit margin so you know kind of where you're at. This is a vital, vital step. All right, with that being said, you go through the first 3 steps. Everything looks good. Your profit margin looks good. Your niche looks good. It looks like it's going to be successful. Now is the step to open your shop. You got to go in and get your shop open. Now, I have a very, very detailed walkthrough video on how to open your shop. I'll pop it up here. So when you're ready, you can watch that. It's pretty long. I think it's like 45 minutes long, but it literally goes through every step that you will need to take. But I am going to cover this, generally speaking, of the steps you need to take to get your shop open. Before you're ready to open your shop, you need to have a shop name ready. And you need to I would also make sure you have a logo, because you want to open your shop with a logo. You can create one for free on canva.com. You can go on fiverr.com, have someone create one for you for like $5 to $10. Don't overthink this. You can change it. It's not that important. And your name may already be taken, so you may have to abbreviate it. You may have to add in something at the end like co for company. It's not a big deal if your name's taken. You can take out some of the vowels, or you can change up the end. I would just make sure you're looking up those shops. If your name's taken, look up that shop and see if it's really, really established. If it has a lot going on. A lot of these shops where your name's taken aren't even open, and there's nothing going on with it. I would not open a very similar name to something that's already established and doing well on Etsy, because it could get confusing. There could be some, if you want to branch out outside of Etsy, they're already branched out outside of Etsy. There could be some litigation. They can send you a cease and desist. So I would go with something that's different, that's not already established on Etsy if possible. So probably have couple ideas, 2 to 3 ideas out there, because you're going to go on to open your shop and your name's going to be taken. You're like, oh crap, what do I do? So be prepared. You may have to, like I said, tweak it a little bit. It doesn't matter. Your name can be something different in reality than it shows on your shop name. You know what I mean? So like it can be like Sarah's, like you want the name like Sarah's Boutique Treasures or something like that, but that's taken. So maybe you just do Sarah's Boutique Co. or something like that. But on your banner image, you can make it Sarah's Boutique Treasures. You can tweak it like that. That's really what matters at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter what your little name is at the top. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Don't overthink it. The key is to get your shop open and not keep these little things holding you back. The other thing that you're going to need is a credit card and a bank account. So Etsy can charge you when you start listing stuff. And they can pay you out to your bank account once you start selling stuff. Once you proceed through setting up your shop, it'll ask you for these items, and it'll ask you for your credit card, your bank account, your shop name. It'll then ask you to add your first listing. It won't let you move forward without adding your first listing. So if you're not ready to add your first listing yet, go ahead and just put up a sample listing, activate it. You're going to have to put in your title, you're going to put in your tags, you're going to have to put in what it is, do a sample listing. You'll need the practice anyways, and then activate it, and then go in and deactivate it. It'll cost you 20 cents to activate it, but if you're not ready to sell it, and you're not ready to start adding listings yet, go ahead and activate it and then deactivate it, and you can come back and refine it and activate it later. Then once you do that, it'll allow you to jump into the rest of your shop and fill out the shop sections, your banner image, your announcement section, your shop members, your about section, your policies. So make sure you're filling out all of these sections as soon as possible. It will help your shop. It'll help your shop get recognized. It'll help the algorithm recognize that your shop is serious. And then after that, it's time to go back and start adding your actual listings. So you're going to need your listing photos. You're going to need to write out your description. You're going to need to write out your keywords. If you did your product research early on, you should already have a batch of keywords that you know you're going to need and want to use, which will help you be more successful. Your keywords is really important to getting traffic to your shop and getting traffic to your listing so that people will buy. So make sure you're setting up all the information, all the attributes, everything that is necessary for your listings, and get as many listings up as possible early on, and it'll help give you the best chance of success sooner than later. So that's step 4. Like I said, if you want that full detailed video, make sure you're clicking where I showed you earlier. That brings us to step 5. Step 5, the real final key to all of this, is a consistent plan of action and continuing to build out your product catalog. So if you did that research, that product research early on, you have developed your roadmap, you should have a good amount of products that you know that you need to create and put out there for sale on Etsy. You shouldn't open it with only the idea of one product. You should have already did this research. If you were following these steps early on, you should have a bunch of products that you know that you need to create and put out there on Etsy. So really the goal is setting a plan and a goal each week to add new products. Your first goal on Etsy should be to get to 100 products, 100 listings as soon as possible. That will give the algorithm all the information it needs to start really sending traffic your way, really categorize and really start ranking your stuff, categorize your listings and your shop, and making you a player in that niche, in that space. It won't do that if you only have 5 products. It won't do that if you only have 10 products. You're going to be a very, very small fish in a very, very big sea. Once you start adding a substantial amount of products, then the algorithm will recognize you as a leader in that space, someone to send traffic to, because you have a multitude of different products. And you have to make sure you're adding quality listings as well, like I talked about before. Good pictures, good descriptions, good keywords, which all comes from that earlier research and that continued research that you should have done. Now, here's a couple of bonus tips for you to make sure that you are as successful as you should be if you're doing this correctly. The more you work on your business early on, the better you'll get at it, but you have to start somewhere. So you're going to be a little rusty at first. It's going to take you more time at first. You're going to mess things up. That's all part of the journey. It's all part of the process. You're going to get better. The more you take product photography, you're going to get better at it. Your photos now are going to be way different from your photos in the future. And that's something that you can always change. You can always update. You can always make things better as you learn and grow, but you have to start somewhere. You're not going to be perfect at first. And if you try to be perfect at first, you're never going to get anything done. You're never going to get your shop opened. That is a barrier, a huge roadblock that you're going to put in front of yourself. The next one is really kind of a mindset, is know that you're probably going to be working on your shop for months before you get any sales. All right. This is the most frustrating part of selling on Etsy. The majority of people do not get sales right away, and then they end up quitting. So know that you're going to be working and there's going to be a lot of delayed gratification. You're going to be putting in hours and hours and hours, weeks and weeks and weeks, months and months and months, and you may not get any sales. That doesn't mean that you're not making progress. You should start to see your traffic slowly increase. You should start to see things kind of increase. You're going to get better at your skill, better at adding listings, more efficient. And that's part of the process. That's part of the things that you really don't see or care about as much because you care about the monetization, you care about the sales. That's just the end result. You got to put in this other work first before you get that end result, before you get that reward. And it sometimes comes way later. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to come if you continue to work at it. The last thing I'm really going to leave you with is continue to monitor your listing stats and do product research. All right. It's not a one and done thing. Running an Etsy shop is not one and done. Your stats as you grow will tell you the story. If you're starting to get listings that are getting traffic, even if you're not getting sales, that tells you, okay, those items are more popular than the other items. Maybe I can try some new items that are related to those, and maybe those ones will sell. Product research will help you continue to find new product ideas to sell and put out there, as you should continue to do. Like I said, when you first open, you should try to get to 100 products as quickly as possible. And that product research will help you do that and help give you the best chance of success if you're putting out products that is already getting a lot of sales and a lot of traffic. And doing this process will get you better at SEO, which is your keywords that you're using, the combination of keywords that you're using, what keywords you're using. I do have a free Etsy SEO revealed guide. I would highly suggest you download that and read that. It'll give you the ins and outs of Etsy SEO so that you know everything that plays into SEO, which is search engine optimization, so that you can have the best chance of success. This is something that, again, that you get better at it as you do more of it, but this will kind of pull back the curtain so you know exactly what's going on, exactly all the factors that play into SEO. So make sure you guys get that at handmadeandbeyond.com/Etsy SEO success. Download it, learn it, and that'll be your playbook to make sure you're getting better and doing SEO the proper way so you can get the most traffic and the most sales as possible. It really is a big part of success on Etsy, along with all these other things that I talked about today. But that is it, guys. Those are the 5 steps. They are not that hard, but they are also not that easy because it takes time and dedication to be able to do them and do them correctly, and not half-ass them, right? The research that you do and the first 3 steps will set the tone for your business and really be able to decide, is your business going to be successful or is it not? If you're not doing those first 3 steps correctly or at all, the chance is really going to be a crapshoot, honestly, of are you going to come out of the gate and find success on Etsy or are you not? And a lot of people don't do that, whether it's laziness or just not knowing what to do. And they make that mistake and they really, they come out and they fail or they don't do really well and they end up closing down their shop. It's really kind of heartbreaking to see, especially if they have good ideas. A little bit of due diligence and research early on could have really changed the course, changed the trajectory of their business if they would have just stuck to this plan. So make sure you're following this plan. Hopefully it helped you guys out, especially if you are a new seller. If you like this content, please make sure you give me a like, subscribe, share. I appreciate it. It helps me reach more people to help them out with their Etsy business. I'll be back soon.